The evening of October 29th, 2019, draped Los Angeles in a crisp, golden hush, the kind of autumn night where the air felt alive with possibility. Keanu Reeves stepped through the revolving doors of the Lux Haven Boutique Hotel, a sanctuary he quietly poured his heart into creating. Dressed in his signature unassuming style, a weathered black blazer, faded jeans, and scuffed boots, he blended seamlessly with the travelers and guests milling about the lobby. The hotel, with its polished marble floors, warm chandelier glow, and subtle scent of cedar, was more than a business venture for Keanu. It was a personal mission, a haven designed to embody kindness and hospitality, values he'd clung to through years of grief and resilience. Few knew he owned it, a secret he preferred to keep. But on this night, as leaves danced across the sidewalk outside, that anonymity would unravel in a way he never expected. Behind the front desk stood Amanda Carter, a receptionist in her early 30s whose polished uniform and tightly pinned bun projected an air of authority. She'd been at Lux Haven for 2 years, her identity intertwined with its elite reputation. To Amanda, the hotel was a gilded stage for the wealthy, celebrities, CEOs, the right kind of people, not a refuge for the ordinary. As Keanu approached, his unpretentious appearance jarred her senses. She straightened, her lips pursing in faint disdain. "Excuse me, sir," she snapped, her voice slicing through the lobby's gentle hum. "Do you even have a reservation? We don't just let anyone walk in here, you know." Keanu raised an eyebrow, his calm demeanor unshaken. "Actually, I do," he replied softly, reaching into his pocket for his phone to pull up a confirmation email. Amanda barely glanced at the screen, her eyes rolling with practiced scorn. "People like you think you can just stroll into a place like this," she muttered, her words carrying to the ears of nearby guests. "This isn't a hostel." A shadow of hurt flickered across Keanu's face, though he masked it with his trademark composure. Across the lobby, Emily and David, a couple in their late 20s, sat by the crackling fireplace. High school sweethearts celebrating their 5th anniversary, they'd been savoring a quiet evening until Amanda's sharp tone drew their attention. Emily nudged David, her voice a hushed whisper. "That looks like Keanu Reeves, doesn't it?" David squinted, skeptical. "No way. What would he be doing here? Checking in like some regular guy." Undeterred, Amanda pressed her attack, her tone growing colder. "This isn't the kind of place you book on a whim," she said, folding her arms. "We cater to an elite clientele, celebrities, CEOs, people who can actually afford it. I suggest you try the motel down the street." Keanu's voice remained steady, a quiet strength beneath it. "Is this how you treat all your guests?" Amanda smirked, her confidence unshaken. "Only the ones who don't belong." She reached for the phone to summon security, her fingers hovering over the buttons, when a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Amanda!" James, the hotel manager, burst into the lobby, his face paling as he spotted Keanu. "What are you doing?" "I'm handling a situation," Amanda replied, gesturing dismissively toward Keanu with a flick of her wrist. James's eyes widened in horror, his voice trembling as he stepped closer. "That's not just a guest. That's Mr. Reeves. He owns this hotel." The lobby fell into a stunned silence, the air thick with disbelief. Amanda's face drained of color, her hands dropping to her sides as the weight of her mistake crashed over her. Her knees wobbled slightly, and she gripped the edge of the desk for support. Emily whispered to David, her voice trembling with excitement. "I told you it was him." "Oh my God." David nodded, his skepticism replaced by awe. Keanu didn't revel in the revelation. He exhaled deeply, his gaze locking onto Amanda's with a quiet intensity that seemed to pierce through her defenses. "I believe in kindness," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "It's the foundation of everything we built here. Everyone deserves respect, no matter where they come from or how they look." Amanda's lips quivered, tears welling in her eyes as the reality of her actions sank in. "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice cracking under the strain of her guilt. Keanu didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to the gathered guests, his eyes softening as they met Emily and David's wide-eyed stares. I wasn't always someone who could afford a place like this, he admitted, his tone raw with vulnerability. There was a time I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, let alone where I'd sleep. I was homeless, broke, lost. That's why I wanted this hotel to be different, a place where people feel welcome, no matter who they are. The room held its breath, the weight of his words settling over everyone like a gentle tide. Amanda's tears spilled over, streaking her carefully applied makeup. I don't know what came over me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I let my pride and prejudice cloud my judgment. Please forgive me. Keanu nodded, but his expression remained measured. Words are easy, he said. Actions matter more. How you treat people when no one's watching. That's what defines you. James stepped forward, his face etched with shame and determination. Mr. Reeves, I take full responsibility for this. This isn't what we stand for. I promise you, changes will be made. Keanu gave a small nod, his focus returning to Amanda. The world needs more kindness, he said softly. It starts with us. Before he could leave, a small figure emerged from the shadows of the lobby. A boy, no older than 8, clutching his mother's hand. They'd been sitting quietly in the corner, watching the drama unfold. Mr. Reeves, the boy said, his voice trembling with nervous excitement. Keanu knelt down, his gentle smile disarming the child's hesitation. Hey there, buddy, he said warmly. The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a drawing of a superhero, cape billowing, with "To Mr. Reeves, the real superhero" scrawled in shaky handwriting at the top. My dad used to watch your movies with me before he went to heaven, the boy said, his eyes bright with emotion. He always said you were the nicest person in Hollywood. I think he was right. Tears welled in Keanu's eyes as he carefully unfolded the drawing, his hands trembling slightly. He pulled the boy into a gentle hug, his voice thick. Your dad must have been an amazing person. Thank you for this. It means more than you know. Emily wiped her eyes, leaning into David as the scene unfolded. He's been through so much pain, yet is still so kind, she whispered, her voice breaking. David nodded, his throat tight. He turns it into something beautiful. Look at him. Keanu stood, the drawing still in hand, and called after the boy as he turned to leave with his mother. Wait a second, he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a scratched keychain, a small token from an old movie set, its edges worn from years of being carried. Your dad was a great man, Keanu said, kneeling again to meet the boy's gaze. I want you to have this. It's not much, but maybe it'll remind you that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. The boy's eyes widened as he took it, his small hands trembling. Thank you, Mr. Reeves, he whispered, clutching the gift like a treasure. The lobby seemed to hold its breath, but the silence was soon broken by a soft, haunting melody drifting from the far corner. George, a maintenance worker in his 70s with a weathered face and calloused hands, had wandered over to the grand piano near the bar. His fingers moved across the keys with surprising agility, coaxing out a rendition of Claire de Lune that filled the room with an aching beauty. Keanu approached, a wistful smile tugging at his lips as he listened. When George finished, Keanu clapped softly, drawing the older man's startled gaze. That was incredible, Keanu said, his voice warm. How long have you been playing? George chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Longer than I've been fixing pipes around here. That's for sure. My wife loved this piece. I played it for her every night before she passed. Keanu's expression softened, a shared understanding passing between them. She must have been lucky to have you. George's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I was the lucky one, Mr. Reeves. Keanu turned back to the room, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. The hardest thing about being human is carrying the weight of everything you've lost, he said, his gaze sweeping over Amanda, the boy, Emily, and David, and the handful of guests still watching in quiet awe. But it's also what makes love so powerful, what keeps us going. He paused, his eyes lingering on Amanda, who nodded through her tears, then shifted to the boy and his mother as they slipped out through the revolving doors. This place isn't about luxury or status, he added, his tone resolute. It's about people. Let's never forget that. With that, he walked toward the elevators, The boy's drawing clutched tightly in his hand, its edges crinkling under his grip. Upstairs, in his private suite on the top floor, Keanu set the drawing on the desk by the window. The room was a masterpiece of design, rich wood paneling, soft lighting, a view of the city sprawling beneath a twilight sky. But to him, it felt cold, empty. He crossed to a small safe in the corner and opened it, revealing a collection of mementos that told the story of his life. A faded photograph of Jennifer Syme, his late girlfriend, her smile frozen in time. A beaded bracelet his sister had made during her battle with leukemia. A dog-eared copy of a book his friend River Phoenix had loved. He tucked the boy's drawing between the book's pages, his thoughts drifting to the losses that had shaped him. Jennifer's tragic death, River's overdose, his sister's suffering, the father who'd walked away when he was a child. Each memory was a wound, yet each had fueled his quiet determination to keep giving. A knock at the door startled him from his reverie. "Come in," he called, his voice hoarse. James stepped inside, his face etched with concern. "Mr. Reeves, I just wanted to check on you. Tonight was a lot." Keanu managed a faint smile, leaning against the desk. "I'm fine, James." "Really?" But James wasn't convinced. He hesitated, then spoke softly. "You told me once, when we started this place, that people don't come to hotels like this for the rooms or the amenities. They come for connection, for moments that remind them why life's worth living. Tonight, you gave everyone in that lobby one of those moments. Even Amanda. Especially Amanda." Keanu chuckled faintly, though his eyes glistened. "Let's hope she takes it to heart." James stepped closer, his voice earnest. "You're more than just the owner here, Keanu. You're the heart of it. You give people something to carry with them, because you've lived through loss and turned it into something that heals." Keanu's throat tightened, the weight of James's words pressing against the walls he'd built around his grief. "Sometimes I wonder if I have anything left to give," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. James shook his head, unwavering. "You have more than most people ever will. It's because you understand what it's like to lose everything and still choose to keep going." Keanu didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. After James left, he sat by the window, the city lights twinkling below like a sea of stars. He picked up the boy's drawing again, tracing the shaky lines with his finger. On the back, he wrote in careful script, "To the boy who reminded me heroes come in all shapes and sizes, thank you for being mine tonight. Keanu." He folded it into an envelope and called the front desk, asking them to deliver it to the boy's room before checkout. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the hotel an hour early, her eyes red from a sleepless night of reflection. She found James waiting with a steaming cup of coffee. "You're here early," he said, handing it to her. She nodded, her voice shaky but determined. "I want to start over. I need to." James studied her for a moment, then gave an encouraging nod. "Then let's make today count." As the lobby filled with a morning rush, guests checking out, others lingering over breakfast, she spotted the boy and his mother heading toward the doors. The boy clutched Keanu's envelope in one hand, the keychain in the other, his face glowing with joy. He paused, turned back, and waved at Amanda, a small, sincere gesture that pierced her heart. She waved back, a tear slipping down her cheek as she realized the gift wasn't just from Keanu. It was a chance for her to be better, to rediscover the kindness she'd buried beneath years of striving to prove herself. Outside, the boy beamed up at his mother as they crossed the street, the morning sun casting a golden glow over the city. "I told you, Mom," he said, his voice brimming with awe. "He's a real superhero." His mother smiled, ruffling his hair, her own eyes misty with gratitude. Back in the lobby, Amanda wiped her tears discreetly and returned to her duties, a quiet resolve settling over her. She greeted each guest with a warmth she hadn't felt in years, her tone softer, her smile genuine. James watched from the sidelines, noting the subtle shift, and knew Keanu's words had taken root, not just in Amanda, but in the very soul of the hotel. Upstairs, Keanu stood by his window, watching the boy and his mother disappear into the bustling crowd. His chest felt heavy, the familiar ache of loss pressing against him. But for the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of peace. He thought of Jennifer's laughter, River's wild spirit, his sister's courage, memories that hurt but also sustained him. He pulled out his phone and typed a note. Sometimes the smallest moments remind us of the biggest truths. Kindness matters, love heals, and even in the darkest times, we can be someone's light. Slipping it back into his pocket, he grabbed his jacket and headed downstairs. In the lobby, the staff gathered as he emerged from the elevator, their expressions a mix of gratitude and admiration. Amanda stepped forward, her hands clasped nervously. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her voice trembling but sincere. "Thank you, not just for last night, but for giving me a second chance. I promise I'll make the most of it." Keanu nodded, his gaze steady. "It's not about being perfect. It's about being better than we were yesterday. Keep trying." He turned to the others, offering a small smile. "Take care of this place, and each other." With that, he stepped outside, the crisp air greeting him as he blended into the city's rhythm. Just another face in the crowd, a feeling he cherished.